Hello. So today I want to go over 7 real estate myths. I'm going to debunk them. I'm sure many of us have thought some of these in the past, but let's go ahead and just jump right in. Real estate agents make too much money. That's myth number one. Believe it or not, real estate agents only make about $40,000 a year on average. Um, that means that there's many teachers out there who make more than real estate agents make. And to top it all off, our income is not consistent every week or every month. Sometimes there's months and months go between deals before closing a deal. And we usually only get paid once the deal has closed. So if we get a contract today and it's 30 or 45 days out before closing, that means that we don't get paid for 30 or 45 days. And that's assuming that it closes because anything can happen in that time frame. So unless the agent has built up a good book of business, which can take several years to do, then there's a lot of agents out there who basically are either doing real estate part-time, they have another side job that they kind of work on the side, maybe like a hobby job or something to help make ends meet, or they just survive on very little money. Um, Most agents with very large brokerages close less than 4 deals a year, which basically means that they have almost minimal income. And we have to pay a lot in fees to the MLS for advertising and our own overhead expenses. Some, especially with large brokerages, some have fees that they have to pay to the office. I happen to work for a small independent brokerage, so I don't have the office fees, fortunately. Um, Now, as a side note, it's partly why you want to work with an extremely experienced agent. So you want to make sure you're asking questions to sign with the right real estate agent. Otherwise, they may not have the experience you need to buy or sell a property. However, there's a caveat to that. If you are working with an agent who is newer to the business, I am not saying don't work with them because we all had to start somewhere. All of us were new in whatever job and whatever industry we were in at one point before. So just make sure that the newer agent, if you are working with a new agent, that they have a mentor or somebody in their office who can truly guide them in the process. So that way they can give you the best advice and everything. So I am not discounting newer agents, but you want to make sure that you're asking the right questions to ensure that you're getting the best service possible. Myth number two, the higher the list price, the more the agent makes. This is actually not necessarily true. It's usually a percentage of the sales price, not the list price. So if you're listed at $500,000 and we say it's a X percent percentage of the commission is actually based on the sales price, not the list price. So let's say the sales price is only 400,000, then it's the X percent on the 400,000, not the 500,000. And you'd be surprised at how little extra percentage really is really there when it comes to the commission. Well, it might be a $10,000 difference on the settlement statement. In the end, it's probably less than $200 on the commission to the real estate agent. So if you're a seller and the commission is built into your listing agreement for X percent, you have to remember that commission typically gets split 4 ways. It gets split between the buyer's agent and the seller's agent. So, or the selling side, the buying side and the selling side, right? So usually half goes to your listing agent's company, and then the other half goes to the buyer's agent's company. And then that gets split again between the company and the real estate agent on the listing side, and then the company and the real estate agent on the buying side. So in the end, it's split 4 ways. So that is something to also keep in mind. So you think a percentage makes a big difference, but in the end, it's not that much of a difference. Myth number three, agents have to show the house anytime the buyer wants. We don't necessarily have to show homes on demand. Just because it's our job doesn't mean that we have to be at your beck and call. So before you call up any old agent to see a house, a couple things to keep in mind. It's probably best to be working with your own agent. So if you're a seller, you want an agent who's going to most likely work solely with you. And if you're a buyer's agent, you're going to want to work solely with, or if you're a buyer, you're going to want to work solely with a buyer's agent. In Florida, we allow what we call a transaction broker status. So an agent can work with both the seller and the buyer, and some people prefer that, and that is fine. But keep in mind that that is in Florida, because we default to transaction broker status, there is not a fiduciary relationship there. So just keep that in mind. However, um, having your own agent means that they are going to look out for your best interests and not have to be divided. Um, you want to have something in writing stating you're working only with that agent. We, as a seller, you're signing the listing agreement, which means that you're only working with that agent. But a lot of times buyers get by without signing anything. But why would you get into a relationship or into a contractual agreement with somebody without something in writing? So we do have buyer agreements that we use, and we prefer to use them. Um, a lot of agents sometimes don't use them, but it is something to keep in mind that if you're going to be a seller and sign a contract, why wouldn't the buyer sign a contract with their agent or their agent's office like a seller would? The other thing to keep in mind is if you're not calling the list, if you have an agent that you are normally working with and they are unavailable to show you the property, the next agent to call would be the listing agent. Don't put your name into like Zillow or realtor.com or one of those, because you'll end up with another buyer's agent calling you, not necessarily the listing agent themselves. So that becomes a waste of time. And so this is just a form of education for you to know that if you are already working with an agent and they can't show you a property, then maybe they need to be the ones to contact the listing agent directly and ask if the listing agent would be available to open the property up for you as a buyer. As a seller, it is your listing agent's job to schedule those showings and everything. Let's hope that your listing agent is available to show the property if you have a situation where the buyer's agent can't bring the buyers, because it's the listing agent's job to do everything they can to sell your property. Um, so yes, so you want to make sure that you have some sort of contract signed. I can't tell you how many times I've shown numerous houses to buyers and they end up buying with another agent. So it is important, even from a real estate agent standpoint, that we have something in writing signed with the buyer. It just helps protect us and helps keep the clarity of what that relationship is so the lines don't get blurred. Number 4, agents get kickbacks from inspectors, escrow companies, or lenders. That is actually what we call a RESPA violation, which stands for the Real Estate Settlements and Procedures Act. So since 1974, agents have been prevented from receiving any type of kickback or favor from vendors. We can actually jeopardize our license and incur serious fines if we participate in any sort of kickbacks or bribery or anything like that. So that's definitely false. Myth number 5, home inspectors live in real estate agents' pockets. Um, if the agent is to be trusted, they can't have an inspector that's only going to favor that agent. And inspectors need to make money too. So even if I close 10 or 24 deals a year or whatever, the reality of it is that an inspector can't live off that. So he still has to have other agents that he works for, other buyers and sellers that he works for. So, and you really do want inspectors and real estate agents that have to be completely unbiased and disclose the material facts. We, as an agent, we prefer home inspectors that are not an alarmist, but they will report on the issues calmly and matter of factly. So a little story, I actually had a situation one time with one of my more preferred home inspectors because he's thorough in his home inspections. And he was explaining to my buyers a situation with the roof, and they backed out of the deal, and I didn't have anything signed with them. And so they went and bought a property with another agent. But needless to say, he wasn't being an alarmist. He was very calm about the way that he explained it to them, but they didn't want a house with any kind of roof issues or any kind of roof wear. So that was that. Next myth number 6, agents have to tell buyers everything they know about the property or neighborhood. So there is a very fine line between due diligence and honesty. And there are fair housing laws that prevent us from saying certain things. So for instance, we cannot talk about crime in the area, whether the schools are good or bad, or the ethnic makeup of a neighborhood. We can't steer you in any kind of direction. We can tell you to Google search it or tell you where to find that information, but we cannot discriminate on any protected classes. And I actually recently had that question come up about what the crime was in the area, and I had to recommend that they get with the sheriff's department for that. So we can disclose material facts about the property itself, something that is unseen. So if there's a big gaping hole in the roof, you can walk in and see that. That's pretty obvious. We don't have to verbally disclose that. However, if there's ever been a moisture or mold problem in the house that maybe couldn't be seen, that is something that if we are aware about it, this is a big if, we have to be aware of it to be able to disclose it. But that is something that we should be disclosing as real estate agents if we're aware of it. And finally, number 7, agents will say and do anything to close the deal. Um, the reality is, with any industry, there's representatives that can be unfair, biased, and unethical. But good real estate agents, and especially realtors, because there is a difference, should be honest and perform their duty to provide the best information in the most unbiased information to a buyer or seller. Our industry is really based on reputation. So I, as a real estate agent, would try very hard not to jeopardize or harm my reputation in any way, shape, or form. So those are the 7 myths. I hope that helped you understand where real estate agents come from a little bit better. And if you have any questions, of course, always feel free to reach out. Thank you. Bye. Hi, thank you for watching my video. Please click the like and the subscribe button to my YouTube channel. And if you're ready to get the process started with home buying or home selling, then please give me a call today. Thank you. Bye.